doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone, leave me alone.
Jack Burns, Terry Holloman. It's Burns and Holla, except now we're called Anarchist jurisdiction because, Terry, we live in an anarchist jurisdiction, although I would argue all of America is currently an anarchist jurisdiction. Let me just read you some of the headlines of the day from CNN.com. Start with this. Trump refuses to commit to a peaceful transition of power after Election Day. So fall is going to be so much better than summer. Senate resolution to honor Ginsburg blocked after debate over language. A distressed Deborah Birx questions how long she can remain on the task force, sources say. And then the big story of the day, remarkably, even though our current president is saying, maybe I won't leave until you force me to leave, is Louisville is on edge after no officers are charged directly with Breonna Taylor's death. And Terry, let's start there. I'm not surprised, especially based on what the governor called for over the last couple of days, where there was going to be an imposed curfew. The National Guard was coming in. You only really make those sort of choices if you know what the outcome is going to be. And I've been watching legal debates about the Breonna Taylor case. And if you don't know the details, this was a 26-year-old EMT worker who was shot while in her bed after the cops, and this is becoming a point of contention, busted into her dwelling on a no-knock warrant. And that's something that's being contested now. Her boyfriend was there at the time, and because someone was busting into the apartment, because he was an armed person, and because this is what supposedly the Second Amendment is all about, opened fire on the police, and the police returned fire, and she ended up being struck 6 times again while sleeping. This happened in March. Today it was announced one of the 3 officers involved will be charged, but not with anything to do with her actual death. It's called wanton endangerment. And basically what the charge is that he just was opening fire on anything. Like, he wasn't really picking a target. Some of the bullets that he fired actually ended up in the apartment next door. Louisville, as well as New York, and I expect our anarchist jurisdiction later, Seattle, is protesting en masse after this decision. Reaction, Terry?
Man, I mean, I'm almost speechless, man. I'm speechless. I'm exhausted. I'm fed up. But like you, I saw this coming. I saw this coming a mile away. This is par for the course when it comes to our judicial system and our legal system here in the United States of America. It's par for the course for the way our society is set up. A lot of people will tell you that this worked exactly the way it was designed to work. It was designed for people of color, particularly Black people, to be the burden bearers, to be the cross bearers, to be the ones that are on the wrong side of justice whenever it comes to situations like this. So I kind of was, I was expecting this to happen, but I'm no less shocked and disappointed that it now has become a reality. It's too many emotions to describe, and it's to the point where I am, and my associates are, my peers are, and basically anybody that's Black in America that is conscious, we're just exhausted by it.
So exhausted seems to be the overriding tone of what you just said. Like there's definitely simmering anger, but you can only hold that for so long before exhaustion sets in.
Yeah, you think about it, man. If we take into consideration the Black experience for Black Americans, is to be in a constant state of rage. And I don't want this to sound like a woe is me situation or a pity party or anything like that. But to be Black and in America and to be conscious is to be in a perpetual state of rage. We were originally brought here unwillingly to toil to build this country for free in exchange for being beaten, in exchange for being raped, and in exchange for having our children and their children and their children beaten and maimed and owned and made to work. And that's something we're conscious of. And then to be, essentially set free to nothing, to nothing, to Jim Crow, to segregation, to redlining, to police brutality. And that is where we stand today. And to have people tell you that it doesn't exist and to pretend like everything is fine and everything is equal now, it's a perpetual state of rage.
What do you think? I'm gonna hit you back, Terry, with some common white arguments. You ready for them?
I'm always ready for it. That's what makes me exhausted. But go ahead.
I wasn't around during slavery. Why am I to blame?
Well, it's because you think about the situation. We're taught to not forget our history, right? We don't forget what happened on 9/11. We don't forget what happened at Pearl Harbor. We don't forget what happened at the Alamo, right? Those are things that still affect so many people to this day. They will go to their graves and they will teach their children to never forget. And they will teach their children's children to never forget, because these things still affect us mentally. Mm-hmm. To think about the things that affect us, not only mentally, but also economically and societally. Those things that happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, the effects are still felt today. And there are a lot of the things that are still going on today. The effects of slavery, they're still felt today. You have a situation, just think about this, Zach. It was illegal for us to read, to know how to read. You could kill your slave for knowing how to read, and they were. So if you were permitted, you got to think about it. Some things, become inherited. We've inherited from our parents, which they inherited from their grandparents, which they inherited. It's all been passed down. So if you were passed down, all you were passed down was, it was illegal for you to read. It was not important for you to read. The only thing that was important for you was to be physically capable of getting out there in the field and working. And that's something that's been passed down for generations. That's something that's, that's how you were valued. And so if you were taught that, if you read, we're gonna kill you. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, man. We're talking about a couple of generations ago that this was real.
White argument number 2, Terry. I know some Black people, and we get along. So why am I part of the problem?
Well, I mean, you're not part of the problem. I'm not saying that you are part of the problem. If you have Black friends to get along with them, that's cool.
But I've heard people say, well, there's no such thing as racism because I've met a Black person, and we've been cordial with one another.
Well, I mean, I get that. So I've heard that argument many times. Yeah. I have Jewish friends. There's that doesn't mean that there's not anti-Semitism in the world. I have gay friends. That doesn't mean that people don't hate gay people and would not jump at the opportunity to fight and beat or assault somebody because of their sexual preference. So just because you don't experience it yourself personally doesn't mean that it isn't a reality for somebody else every single day. Like I've never been a rape victim. But for me to sit up and say that rape doesn't exist because I've never experienced it or I've never raped anybody, that would be ridiculous.
Tonight, there's there is going to be the response, as I mentioned in the opening. There's going to be protests, and I think it's unfortunate it's the virtual world versus the real world. But burn Louisville down is the number one topic in America. Last time I checked, which was about 45 minutes ago, and that's not the response that you would hope to have. But when I was reading people write about it, it's like, yeah, because I get it. This is I don't have the racial anger or exhaustion that you have, but what I do have is the financial exhaustion and the class exhaustion. And sometimes I do feel like just screaming, you know what, just burn Amazon down, burn the financial institutions down. Like I feel that. So while I would never actually do it, I sort of get the current anger that people are experiencing in Louisville. What are your hopes? Because sometimes an incident like this does lead to positive change, but it has to be the change makers directing it in a positive direction.
Right.
What do you hope for over the course of the next couple of days when it'll really be in the public eye, and then over the next couple of months or even years when it starts to disappear a little bit? How do they keep it as an effective, a movement that brings in other people?
I hope ultimately for peace. I hope that, that the people of Louisville who are up in arms about this situation don't give the powers that be an excuse to go out there and, tear gas, shoot them with rubber bullets, hit them on the head, and for the detractors to say, see, I told you that's what they do. They're going to burn down the city. They're going to tear up their own neighborhoods. That's what the detractors love to say.
Mm-hmm.
But, I say that to say this. I understand where the anger and the rage comes from. Like I said, to be Black in this country is to be in a state of perpetual rage. And in a situation like this, I mean, what do you do, Zach? Here's the big dilemma. So Colin Kaepernick decided to take a knee for this very reason, right? Years ago, before Breonna Taylor's name was, on the public consciousness. People said he was wrong for that. People said, he's anti-American. He's a communist. He's every name except a child of God. They call Colin Kaepernick, right? That's not the way to protest. Find a different way. So they found a different way to protest. So then, now the people are ready to take to the streets. Oh, those people are violent. They want to burn our neighborhoods. It's causing so much financial turmoil in their own neighborhoods, in the cities. That's not the way to protest. Well, tell me, which way do you want me to protest? You want me to stand on be quiet? Because that's not good enough. You want me to take a knee? That's not good enough. You don't want me to be loud and tear up and burn stuff? That's not good enough. So what is this? What is the answer, Zach?
I've been thinking a lot about Colin Kaepernick and what his legacy will be. And it's Colin Kaepernick was good enough to root for as an NFL fan, but too Black to support. And that happened even before he decided to take a knee. If you remember this, Terry, there was a meme going around when the Seahawks were matching up against the 49ers in the NFC Championship. And it was our quarterback, and it was Russell Wilson, who's as squeaky clean and, quote unquote, as all American as you could possibly get. He's there, and he looks like someone Dad would just love to meet. And then there was a picture of Colin Kaepernick, and he's got tattoos, and he had cornrows, which upsets a lot of white people. This is how you keep yourself away from success. You do these sort of things. You get tatted up. You put your hair in dreads or cornrows, or Kaepernick later it was an afro. It was just as much the message as the messenger. Because let's say that Russell Wilson had been the first to take a knee. We are an entirely different America right now, because he is completely palatable to every single white fan. Whereas Colin Kaepernick, some of the rejection not only came from the message, but also the messenger. Like, he's the type of Black person that Trump would feature in an ad to scare white America.
I'm sure he probably is. I guarantee they probably have one in the vault somewhere with Colin Kaepernick on there with the America.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Kaepernick. But yeah, I mean, but here's one thing though. I agree with you to a certain degree, but here's the thing. So what if on the flip side it was Russell Wilson? What if Russell Wilson all of a sudden decided that he wanted to be the outspoken one? He wanted to take a knee. He wanted to, I've seen Russell with the cornrows. So what if he was that guy? Would we still be like, okay, but he's our quarterback, so we're gonna ride with him? Or would he all of a sudden, no, wait a minute, now we're starting to have questions about Russell. Maybe he is one of those.
It's a good hypothetical. I think more people would have been on board because, he's just overtly Christian. He's overtly family. That, I mean, at least in the public eye, this was the brand that he portrayed for himself. Whereas, Kaepernick was kind of he was a bad boy, which, that was sort of his brand. And then became, an evil boy once he decided to take a knee. And for me, and that makes it all the more an act of courage, because he knew already what the perception was. Loved it in San Francisco, hated everywhere else, but he already knew what the perception was of, his brand, and still decided to take a knee. And anytime you're the first person to do anything like that, you're the pioneer, and the pioneer is always the bravest.
Well, what about the rest of them now? So since that time, it's been a couple of years now. And I remember last year, the president of the United States called them, sons of bitches.
Sons of bitches.
For those players that were deciding to, support that cause. Because, and again, I hope everybody understands that people didn't get on board with this cause just because Colin Kaepernick was being blackballed from the NFL. I mean, he was the leader of this movement. This is something that you think about the NFL. You have these guys that come from every corner of the country, from Miami to Seattle and every place in between, right?
Edmonton.
There is one from Edmonton, Sherwood Park. Shout out to my people from Sherwood Park. They have all these shared experiences. They didn't make it up. They didn't get on the same chain email and say, hey, let's come up with this crazy, kooky idea that the police are beating up black people and disproportionately putting us in jail and killing us. Let's come up with this idea and everybody's going to love us and we'll just all take a knee and it'll be cool. That never happened.
Mm-mm.
It didn't happen. I promise you guys. I would have been CC'd on that. This all came from individuals' own experiences over a lifetime, and our friends' experiences, and our parents, and our aunts and uncles and grandparents. It's gone on forever, and so now the people would just decided to stand up and take a stand for it, and they became sons of bitches that need to be disrespectful.
Right, because the right was quite successfully able to make it all about the flag, and then the flag becomes the troops, which always sort of confused me anyway, because the flag is for all of us. It's not just for the military. And the national anthem is also, it's about a war, the War of 1812, which no one knows shit about anyway. Hey, do you know that the French bailed us out like twice? So when they didn't help us in Iraq, we still kind of owed them. And we definitely owed them for World War II. But to make it a patriotic thing, even though it was explicitly, described as something completely different, was better branding again by the Republicans, because Black Lives Matter again is a nuanced position, and bad branding. I will say that bad branding. Black Lives Matter is not a good slogan, because right away, people I know, buddies like Jason Rance just said all lives matter, and at the time, it was like, yeah, that seems like a decent counter argument, because there's a context to be put in Black Lives Matter. Is that when there was recently this tragic shooting of a kid in South Carolina. He was 5 years old. A guy who turned out to be black walked up to him and just shot him in the head. And people use that as like, well, all lives matter, and saying that as almost a protest. And then the follow-up questions were, well, did they catch the suspect? Yes. Was the suspect arrested? Of course. Is he going to be prosecuted? Yes, and without a doubt, there'll be a guilty verdict. And will he serve jail time? Yes. And also, was he a police officer? No. So just completely different issues, except the problem is now, Terry, is that the All Lives Matter movement has been so ingrained in so many people's heads that anytime a white person is killed by a black person, they're going to immediately post that headline and say, or, the next time a cop is shot, they're going to immediately think that All Lives Matter is an appropriate response to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, they'll say all lives matter if it happens to be a black person that is the shooter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the challenge. That's the one challenge, and it is so. It's always been amazing to me, and that's why it's always been like it's such a blatant, like, disrespectful thing, like blatantly, not even subliminally or subtly, for you to say all lives matter or blue lives matter. Okay, we understand that. I mean, that's a given. That's a given.
Right.
That comes with that's baked in the cake, right? But to me, to say something matters is the most basic thing you could, like, almost everything matters. Can you think of something that does not matter? Like garbage.
Antimatter, I guess.
Antimatter. That's about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything matters, and for black people originally, when the movement started to come out and say Black Lives Matters, it is such a basic thing. That's like just one step above existing, right? Like that you have to be in such a downtrodden place to try to convince people that you matter. So for anyone to come out and say, and the only time you'll ever hear anyone say all lives matter is immediately after someone else has said Black Lives Matter.
You're right.
So
and imagine this, like, and I have to credit, I can't remember who put it this way. Imagine if I came to you, Terry, and I'm upset, and I said, well, my mom just died. And then you said, well, all moms die. Like it's I guess it's technically right, but it's a real dick thing to say.
It's a super dick thing to say, man. Yeah. It's so, like, it's blatant. It is blatantly disrespectful. And so that's how I feel every time I hear it. And it goes back to what I said about being in a perpetual state of rage all the time. And as someone who tries to be, a rule follower, a leader of sorts, a father, a cornerstone in his community, you have to suppress all of these emotions all the time, on top of everything else that we are dealing with: pandemic, quarantine, remote learning, remote working, remote not working, and then lump into it all the extra: all lives, Black lives, no lives. It's a lot to deal with.
So do you have a room in your house where you just bust shit up?
I need one.
Really?
I need a smash room, man. I need one of those, man. I need like a baseball bat and all kind of old artifacts I can just go in there and smash up. What happened a few weeks ago, a friend of mine who does a lot of MMA training, he trains a lot of the Seahawks with hand-to-hand combat and stuff, because that, they do that a lot in football, a lot of hand-to-hand combat, and it's a good cardio workout. And he actually came over and brought his gloves and his mitts and his little body shield thing, and he was like, "Man, I know you've been going through it. Just let it out, man." So I just spent like 45 minutes wailing on his sides, man, and on the pads.
He could generate a massive income from that. I'm talking like $150. I mean, I would say an hour, but you probably wear yourselves out in 10 minutes doing that.
Listen, it was a hell of a workout. Zach, have you ever boxed before?
Yeah, no.
Or
what do you think?
No, I was just to say, like, so I've watched boxing for my entire life, and we watched all the MMA and all that stuff, right? And those of us that are watching, you've done it too. You're watching, you're like, just hit him with the left. No jab, just do this. Man, put boxing gloves on and go box. I give you, and just do 2 minutes. Just do 2 minutes of straight punching, and then come back and tell me about it.
I know people get disappointed because for a while there, it seemed like every fight lasted. You used to have to pay $99.95 or whatever to get pay-per-view to watch a heavyweight fight, and they would last like 75 seconds sometimes.
Right.
Which that always made sense to me. You have the two best punchers in the world punching each other.
Yeah.
So of course one is going to get knocked out.
But here's the thing. So it's not just the best puncher. So you're punching, and that's hard enough as it is, right? Like I said, just go punch something for 2 minutes. That's hard enough as it is. Now imagine something punching back at you, and then you're trying to get out of the way of it, and then every now and again one of them hits you. Ooh.
Yeah. You got to punch and take punches.
Yeah, man. So after like 2 rounds with my buddy, I just laid on the hood of my car. I was just like, done, man. I'm done.
The closest I ever got to actual, I've been in fights, but they were just fights. They're just, you just scrap. No one has any form. All punches are pretty much roundhouses. You don't know what else to do. No one's, exactly. No one's doing jabs. Just,
right.
But I did meet Mike Tyson once, which was terrifying.
Really? Where was that? How did that happen?
He was in the building. He when I worked in New York, he wasn't on my show. He was on the show before me, a show called Opie and Anthony. And he came in for an interview. And this was post face tattoo, post I take Zoloft from killing to stop from killing all y'all. So like this dude was scary, which the voice never matched up. Imagine if that dude talked, all gravelly.
Right.
But I have somewhere a picture of him and I. And he did the thing. He's like, yeah, you want me to put my fists up? And I was like, yeah. And, we're both doing that. But when he put them up, I like lurched backwards because even knowing he's not going to hit me, him in that position was terrifying. Because even if he just did a playful punch, I'm unconscious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mike Tyson, I remember. So in my early teen years is when Mike was at his height of superstardom of just beating people up in 30 seconds and
having Nintendo games.
Yeah. That was my early teen years, and I remember like I remember before that I would watch boxing all the time with my dad, and it was Sugar Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali and Roberto Duran and those kind of guys, right? And you used to be like, oh, these guys are great boxers. And then Mike Tyson came along. He was actually somebody that I was afraid of. I used to be like, I love this dude. I hope I never meet him because he was that type of menacing figure. He's like, and I hate to liken him to this, but it's like, there's a pit. Your friend has a pit bull.
Yeah,
a big, giant, scary pit bull, and he's nice to you most of the time.
Yeah,
but then you never know that one day he just is gonna snap and tear your whole face off.
Because the pit bull always has that option. You're right, and that being friends with Mike Tyson just must be terrifying. Like you don't even want to even approach upsetting him. Or could you imagine
you don't even have to upset him. Like so he's the kind of guy I've always imagined. Like he could be completely cool. Like 1 minute, like you hanging out, and then all of a sudden he just snaps, and then he's biting your face. Like, why are you doing this right now?
Because you didn't use a coaster or something. It doesn't take much.
Yeah.
And then a sad boxer that I met, Terry, was Jake LaMotta, who the movie Raging Bull. Yeah. Jake LaMotta he's an absolute legend, but man, he had the brain of a boxer, and he lived for a long time. He might still be alive, but I really doubt it.
There's no way.
But it was like and he was someone who came in, and I booked him on the show, and then very much regretted it because I was just such a fan of Raging Bull. He came in because he was still doing I don't know if you remember the end of the movie, but LaMotta is out of boxing. He's overweight, and he's just doing bad entertainment, like really corny jokes and everything. That's actually what this dude became.
Mhm.
For one thing, his hands, and people don't understand. I don't know what your hands look like, Terry, but professional athletes' hands become so gnarled. Yeah,
I got a little
a little
but not like
gnarled,
the.
but
I know what
smooth.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and LaMotta's hands really just looked like disfigured twigs. And he was dating someone much younger than him who was clearly just around for the cash, and being forced by that woman to keep performing like 2 nights a week. So he would get up, and we had him on for like 8 minutes, and he talked like this. This was the joke he did twice. I fought Sugar Ray Leonard so many times, I thought I would get diabetes. Literally, like twice in 8 minutes. And everybody in the studio is like, this is Jake LaMotta. We're not going to laugh at it the second time
Right.
to make things uncomfortable. But it's amazing that Tyson's not like worst case scenario for later in years boxing. It gets worse than that. I mean, Ali, it's a tough gig.
I think Tyson did a good job of doing a lot of more punching than he did get punched. So
yeah,
I credit him for that. Again, like you said, most of his fights were like 30 seconds, 70 seconds, and then out of there. So
he bit someone's ear off. I don't know why I forgot that.
He bit Evander Holyfield's ear.
The heavyweight champion.
Yeah, in a heavyweight champion fight.
And
that's what I mean when I said he was like the pit bull that any second I'm cool for like right now, and then all of a sudden, ow.
Right, bites your ear off. All right, let's bring in Drew Barth. Terry and Drew, I don't know that you know each other, but I've worked with both of you now. Drew, I haven't seen you in forever. Good to see you, buddy.
Long time. Very long time.
A very, very long time. Terry, meet Drew. Drew, meet Terry if you do need to get reintroduced.
Hi, how's it going? We may have bumped into each other at some point, but I just don't quite remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like not as much Drew, but everyone has some sort of experience with Terry. Because I do have to admit, I was surprised that you knew Jason Rance.
I get around, baby.
You get around.
I'm the Seattle media. I ain't gonna tell you.
Out there in Snohomish. I'm like plugged in right downtown, and I know like 7 people. Everybody knows Terry. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing about as well as anybody could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Amidst all of this, I suppose. So it's all just varying levels of terror.
Yeah.
So.
And you were Terry, I saw Drew open up for Ricky Gervais, who's probably the biggest comic on the planet. And it was amazing. Drew, you did well. No one wants to see you. It's like, another 20 minutes before Ricky. But you got the audience engaged. And you did a tight 15. And I remember being just insanely impressed by that. And you also got the chance to chat backstage with Ricky about what else? Comedy, of course.
Yeah, he came back and he knocked on my door, and he chatted with me for about a half an hour or so. And I wish that I had honestly had something recording the whole time, because it's kind of a blur now. I mean, first of all, it's just a half an hour, and I wasn't really expecting to spend any time with him anyways, but I also kind of kept getting distracted and just staring at his head and thinking about all the things that came out of that.
Yeah.
And just couldn't help but be just a little bit awestruck by it. I mean, regardless of what you think of him, he's on the Mount Rushmore of comedy for the last
forever,
20 years.
The whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, he sold like 4 million tickets in his last tour. It's a comedian. It's not Coldplay or, whatever shit band.
Although he did do at least 4 Coldplay covers, which I thought
it was weird. That was a weird EP. Yeah, really unexpected.
Yeah, he did say that one of the problems, though, was that his audience has changed ever since the election. In that, I don't think a lot of people know that I'm doing a character. I don't think a lot of people know that a lot of things that I'm saying to kind of get the rise and kind of saying a little bit tongue in cheek. But I get a lot of people who are instead just coming to me after the show and be like, "Yes, totally. I'm so glad you said that. I feel the same way." He's like, "No, that's not
right.
No, I don't."
I'm kind of joking.
friend. He's not, yeah, he's got a whole different audience. There's a lot of people that I don't know if I necessarily want to have as my audience.
Yeah.
So bizarre.
It is.
I mean, you could
But
have been kind of, but yeah.
I get that because Ricky's he's very much a free speech advocate, a anti-cancel culture type thing, and some people on the right take that and run with it, like, well, I can say anything, and it should be defensible. So I get how some of Ricky's fans could misconstrue. Although I'm shocked that they would seek him out in the first place, because his comedy wouldn't seem to play to me in Jackson, Mississippi or something like that.
I probably not, but I think that he may have garnered at least a bit of a reputation as being sort of this contrarian, kind of not say the popular thing. And when you have people who are elevated with the idea that they say the not popular thing and people turn out in droves, that's what they started following along with and not realizing kind of the subtext of what he was doing. And
that's why Chappelle bailed. He was. I think he described it once like, there was a white dude on set that was just laughing a little bit too hard, and I realized oh man, I'm entertaining an entirely different group of people than I thought I was.
They've hit the tipping point.
Terry, another thing you might not know about Drew is that he almost died getting hit by a pickup truck.
You know what? I absolutely didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I did know that. Yeah, I was kind of
the week after the Gervais show.
Was that?
Yeah, it was. That was the week after that Gervais.
Was it that soon after?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I was actually debating on whether we should bring that up or not, because I knew that was kind of a touch and go situation for a while there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it honestly, I don't remember the first 48, 72 hours of it, and the whole week following it is pretty spotty. So I feel like it's not as much of a thing for me to think about or talk about. I feel like I'm just sometimes a little bit loath to bring it up because I don't ever want to dwell in it or anything, but it is a fairly unique kind of thing, and I have just a ridiculous new sense and perspective because of it. So
yeah, because I've never known a human that got hit by a car. Like, I know some possum, a deer,
and they're
but never a person.
Get back on the comedy circuit, no problem.
Well, Terry,
it was just crazy because I remember, like I said, I remember hearing about it so well because I was still friends with a lot of people in the building, and I had crossed that street 1,000 times, and I was like, holy smokes, how in the world? So
yeah. Apparently, dude going 35 who just kind of went around somebody else, and I was in the middle of the crosswalk, and then I woke up 3 days later having had a broken knee, broken shoulder, punctured a lung, and then had emergency brain surgery, and I still have a little kind of dip in the top of my head. But all things considered, I mean, man, I could have died very easily, a multitude of different ways. So it's hard not to have a crazy level of just sort of appreciation about most.
Oh, that's what you've turned it into?
Yeah. Well, and I got like 12 minutes of comedy.
You did?
I actually, it was like, as I was laying on the hospital gurney, I said to my wife, I was like, I'm going to at least get 12 minutes out of this. This is I got to do something.
Yeah.
This is just too much not to do anything with. So it also inspired me. I think my next album is either going to be called Drew Barth Hits the Road or Street Show.
So I am assuming at this point you've tracked down the driver and exacted revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I took his head down. I had it up here for a while. I get asked about that every once in a while. I did have a lawyer get in touch with me afterwards, and he sent along a whole bunch of information, and it sounded like the dude was already in collections from multiple different places. He had no insurance. He was pretty much homeless.
Yeah.
But I guess he'd been like former emergency medical services as well. So I think he kind of helped a little bit on the scene. And so what I've been telling people is like I don't remember what happened to me, but I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
And as a result, I feel like we're kind of square in that respect. I mean, I only start to get a little bit pissed off when I have something pop up medically that I had kind of put behind me a little bit. Had that feeling of like, okay, this is a little bit about no harm, no foul kind
Right.
of thing. But then like later on, when I have something pop up, and I'm like, you know what, I can't really explain that aside from my accent. That's why I get a little.
Oh
bit,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
I basically come up with the idea that like I feel like every time I go to the doctor now, it's that feeling of like if you have like electronics and if you flip it over, it's like if you break the seal, all warranty is void.
Right.
Like that's how I feel with my body now. Like nothing else.
Your entire body is a pre-existing condition. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I do remember those first 48 to 72 hours. And I remember the first time I visited you in a hospital, and you recognized me, which was very comforting. But you were already. It's amazing, Terry. I don't know what your longest stay in a hospital is.
Stayed a long time. I mean, just on and off.
Yeah. I think my longest is 4 days. I somehow lacerated my kidney, but you so quickly just become this hospital dirtbag. And Drew, when I visited you, like you put on, the gown that they give you, which exposes everything. And after like 6 hours of having that thing on, you don't care who sees your dick. Like you just don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. It's just, it's just a countdown until you put on regular clothes. But while you have this on, it doesn't matter. So I remember you getting up to like eat some applesauce, which was like just so adorable. With your brain all funky, you're just eating applesauce, and like, oh, there's a Drew Barth testicle right there.
I don't want any more applesauce. I'm good, thanks, bro.
It was really, really cute to see, how we all end up. We all just end up getting fed applesauce by nurses at some point in our life.
Yeah, we're only, a certain number of bad moments away from somebody slowly feeding us ice chips when they can't move. So everybody's getting,
unless you're 6, nobody has applesauce during good times. Like
not anybody over 5.
Exactly.
And especially anybody who's ever been in a situation where they had to only eat applesauce never wants to eat applesauce ever again. That's been pretty much ruined. Like that, and like some of the Jello flavors. I don't know if I can ever taste again for that.
Oh, that's too bad. Have Jello ruined for you.
I know. I mean, what else?
I've sort of rediscovered Jello during the pandemic. It's just delicious. Really? Yeah. It's so satisfying too. It like kind of weirdly fills you up.
I could probably use it because my fingernails are falling off.
That would it helps?
Yeah, it's that gel that goes a long way.
So you can't do live comedy, Drew.
No.
But so what are comedians? I see some are able to do. I just saw Colin Quinn and Gary Goldman announced a couple of outdoor shows, and but to have an outdoor show, you got to be kind of popular. And then there's the rest of the folk who used to make or eke out a living, at least fill some of their income doing some comedy. What is the comedy community doing? I'm curious.
Well, it's strange because it did all collectively stop at once.
Yeah.
So for any feeling that you may have had of kind of like, man, I wish I'd kind of been working a little bit harder, or kind of I had more things lined up, everybody gets reduced to zero, which is pretty interesting. And people you get a feeling just kind of based on social media and such, who was prepared for this or who is going to have the hardest time dealing with it. And honestly, I worried about mental health for a handful of people because I know what a tremendous tool stand-up is in lieu of therapy for a lot of people. And when you think about also not just the ability to work out, kind of personal issues and such, but also you can't undervalue the goal of the value of just adoration and praise from strangers. It's a very difficult thing to all of a sudden just completely wean out of your life altogether. I mean, ask my wife. She would love if there were an audience for me because I'm just I won't stop. And
putting on shows in the kitchen. Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah, it's just that feeling of kind of like, you know what, you could probably use new people to chat with.
Yeah,
I kind of get the feeling that I'm just sort of. I mean, we're also in such sync with each other that it's fun to kind of be almost stepping on each other's jokes, but I also really enjoy kind of the joy that goes with the a different sort of mindset or a different sense of humor.
Right.
So I feel like I was not necessarily, and she still continued to work. So from a financial standpoint, she's working at Xbox and doing the whole sort of remote working and everything. So for me, I get some residual checks for some comedy specials that I've done, but it's not reliant on me to really turn in a massive amount of money to keep it going every month, which I think is probably one of the only saviors for me. And then with my mom getting sick over the past few months, it allowed me to go and take more care of her. So I think if I were just sitting around the apartment and not really doing much of anything, I would need to find some sort of avenue to put all this in some direction.
Yeah, that's when you become a serial killer. That's when you just start.
Yeah. I mean, I could be a very charming serial killer. I've heard that multiple times. I just think that I really lack the complete downward moral compass to actually follow through with any stuff. So, but it's good to know. At least it's my fallback kind of thing. It's like getting it's like your teaching degree. It's like, well, at least I can always become a serial killer.
Serial killer with morality, well-mannered serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Did it work for Dexter? It worked just fine.
Yeah, and Dexter didn't even have a pandemic. He had plenty of other things to do. He worked for the cops, and then still managed to be that morally uncompromised serial killer. But he's fictional, Drew. You could be the real one.
That's true. And nobody would actually hassle me about wearing gloves all the time.
Yeah. And then this show could become part of whatever documentary, 5-part, or in the case of HBO, 26-part, because their documentaries are too long.
Are you watching that? Are you watching that next scene?
I can't. It's just they tell a story and they parse out the story just too slowly. Like I'm not someone with a short attention span. Like I can watch a 10-part series if it's worthwhile. I've watched fucking 2 Ken Barnes documentaries. Yeah,
he hasn't even watched.
I know. Yeah, he just edits them and just like, wow, deal with that. But yeah, HBO. Even with the Terry, did you see McMillions?
No, I have not.
It's the best. It's the best topic ever that turned into such a mediocre documentary. Basically, and we all did this. Everybody played the McDonald's Monopoly game.
Yeah,
it was great.
The one was fixed.
It was fixed. Yeah, the whole thing was rigged. What's a better topic than that? McDonald's, I've been there. Monopoly, like it's a documentary you can actually like connect with. And then it should have been a 3-part, and they turned it into a 10-part. They ended up just interviewing people that had such a tangential relationship to the whole scandal.
I remember finding that story when it came out and proposing it as sort of a topic for the show, but it was like, this is so nuanced, though. It's got so many different layers to it. I think they're already developing it for HBO, so maybe just kind of wait for them to do it. But I remember kind of as it was going through, kind of being like, okay, it's the 3rd episode, so this should be wrapping up.
Nope.
Not even anywhere close.
But were the tangents? Were they like dead end tangents? Like they could have been left out, or were they like,
yes,
this is tangential to the story. We need to have this in here. This guy was on the fries, and he got approached by Ray Kroc, and Ray Kroc. What the fuck happened?
They just had B-roll of people eating at Arby's for like 45 minutes in one episode. It doesn't even make sense. Like, what I thought? Because my mind is now just imploding on itself because I'm spending too much time inside, and then everybody I work with is a blockhead, so I don't talk to them. And so I thought of this today. What do you think the earliest someone has ever woken up in a day and thought, I'm going to have Long John Silver's tonight?
Oh, Jesus. Hey, listen, I don't know how many times I've asked that question. Like, who is keeping Long John Silver's in business? Like, first of all, what do you go to Long John Silver's in order? Like, what do you do? Like, let me get the fish.
The fish, and then that's a great question. I should bring up a menu because I know that they're like great. Every fast food place has like this off menu item that sort of becomes famous. Like if you were there right at the crossover of when breakfast used to turn into lunch at McDonald's, you could get like a Big Mac McMuffin. At Long John Silver's, it's just all the batter from the fish. That's what people like go there for.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Like, what do you get? Like, popcorn shrimp. For Long John Silver's.
There should be like a trio kind of restaurant, the way they sometimes have the Taco Bell, KFC combination, but it should just be like 3 obscure restaurants like Long John Silver's, Chevy's, and a Chevy's. And you're just like, what are you all doing here? How are you all in the same town? There's a comic I used to work with who said, he's like, I always see all these ads for Sonic drive-in. And this was before they had Sonic in Washington. It's like, would you like a mouth-watering triple-decker bacon cheeseburger with a frosty ice cream shake? Yeah, drive to Texas.
Sonic. Yeah, Sonic is that's a fascinating chain because they definitely have menu items nobody else does. Like they'll throw Fritos into anything. Like here's a Fritos burger. You can literally, because when I worked in Kansas City, the station was in Kansas, and it was a little town called Mission, Kansas. Every fast food chain you can imagine, but Sonic was always the busiest, and I think that it was because you could get 128-ounce soda at 24 hours a day, and you could get it all. I don't know. I always called it bug juice, but all the sodas mixed together.
Swamp water.
Yeah.
Graveyard.
Yeah, swamp water.
You could get that. And adults were on their way to work, like showing up with 128 ounces of soda. Sonic is an interesting place.
I gotta tell you, every time I go to Sonic, and I've gone there for years and years, living down south, and then waiting for it to finally show up in Washington, and having to drive to. First of all, we used to have to drive to like Eastern Washington to take in Sonics, and now they got one up north, and now they got one in Renton too, I think, right? But anyways, every time I go, I feel like I'm about to take the SAT test. Like I pull up and I'm looking at the menu, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I want this time. Like what? Chili cheese dog, chili cheese fries, chili what? This potato wedges, jalapeno. I don't know. It's like a million items, and then the drink, like, what kind of limeade you want? Cherry, like there's literally a million choices. So
I have pulled up Long John Silver's menu.
Oh boy.
ljsilvers.com. So they have some of the things that you would expect. They have oh my god. So they have cod, and then here's the best thing. The side that you get with the cod is the crumblies. Again, that's the batter that falls off the cod. So their side dish is the batter.
Give me a bucket of crumblies.
If I can't get the KFC skin, then I shouldn't be able to get the crumblies.
That's a great point.
Man.
They have shrimp.
Spirits, Drew.
Just
a bucket of skin.
Again, the serial killer thing. It really comes out.
It does.
What else is on there?
They have shrimp. Don't call these shrimp shrimpy. They're plump, sustainably sourced.
Question, Zach, how many of the foods there actually have quote marks around them?
Lots.
Shrimp. Technically, it's these things.
Here's Alaska pollock. They have pollock too, which is amazing. We love Alaska. That's weird. The fishing's great. The people are great. They are not great. Alaskan people are all running from something. Everybody there has had a different name and a different social security number. It's just full of criminals. It's our Australia. So, and then again comes with a side of crumblies. Imagine as an adult being like, oh man, I could go for some crumblies right now.
Man, I got hankering for some crumblies right now.
Yeah, especially because you know that somebody has actually had to ask, can I have extra crumblies?
Yeah.
Kids, come on, we're going to get crumblies. Get in the station wagon.
Here's the amazing thing. They have salmon. Here's the description. Get your Sam on. It's got a dash. We did from the cold North Pacific waters. Lies. There's no way they're sourcing it from it. And then they have they put salmon in tacos. So Long John Silver says tacos, rice bowls, and meals. Then they have clams, and again with crumblies.
It's more like clams.
And then that's it. That's it.
Hey,
That's what you got.
I mean, I guess there's a price point for everybody, right? Like some people can't get to an Ivers, or maybe some people can't get to an Anthony's home port. So what they do is they go and get salmon and crumblies.
Honestly, this actually beats my dad, because my dad has been asking me, he's like, when can we go to a Red Lobster? I'm like, "Dad, we live
Red Lobsters is good.
Northwest."
Red Lobster is good.
I understand, but here's the thing. It's not that he understands the irony of going to Red
Yeah.
Lobster. That I have no problem with. Is going to a place like that, or Olive Garden, ironically, to kind of be like, I know it's terrible, but we're going to go to Red Lobster. He's instead like, I need good seafood in Seattle. Where's the
Okay, that's funny.
And that's
yeah.
And that's where we're a little spoiled, I think, here living in the Pacific Northwest, because we have access to good, superior quality, fresh seafood. Whereas if you're in the Midwest or down south, it's not as easily accessible. So, to go to a Red Lobster in Seattle is kind of like you said, like, ugh.
Or how about the fact that just in this area you can go and eat seafood anywhere and really not worry about getting sick?
Right.
I find I'm going to defend Red Lobster because I can sometimes go there during Lobster Fest, which is all the time. They only advertise it sometimes, but if you ask for Lobster Fest, and I
usually go during Toyota,
and I know that it's not actually lobster that they're feeding me. But I don't care because it tastes like lobster, and those cheddar biscuits, it's amazing. And the ambiance,
it's lobster with a P, Lopster. Not lobster.
Well, there's no way you could. I don't care where you're.
Crab, right?
You could own all the lobsters and still not be able to sell unlimited lobster for $19.95. So I don't know what I'm eating. But and then it's great because there's like 16-year-olds around you who might go to third base for the first time tonight. That's like that kind of Red Lobster ambience. The young romance is in the air. The guy's trying to. Yeah.
Where are we going? Red Lobster.
I
I
misspoke, by the way, and this is crazier. I understand what you said, Drew, in that, or Terry, that you can't make it to Ivers. Ivers it's a bit overpriced, I'll admit. Long John Silver's has chicken. Who is going to Long John Silver's for chicken?
Chicken of the sea.
Oh my God! What is chicken but fish of the land? Hand battered
on the actual ad.
Hand battered in our signature batter recipe, which is just bad writing. Like hand battered in our signature recipe, you don't need to say batter twice. But man, what a depressing end for a chicken.
Somebody, Captain, whoever it is, Long John is somewhere getting paid. His ancestors and his relatives are getting paid because they're obviously still in business. They've been in business since I've been alive.
Question, Zach, where's the closest Long John Silver's next to you, as according to
let me look at the store locator.
Everett, out by me.
Is it? There is one out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically every single in Everett you can find just about anything.
Because I gotta live north of
they deliver.
Get to
I know.
You'll Uber Eats some crumblies tonight when we get off. Man, I gotta eat these crumblies.
Just see if you can tip with crumblies.
Let's see.
Crumblies and crack in Everett.
Yeah. I got an extra side of crumblies.
Don't get those confused. They're interchangeable. Get these crumblies.
Crumblies. Could you imagine just like as a father, Terry, asking one of your kids to pass the crumblies?
No, not even a little bit.
Like at that point,
I had the hardest time going to Red Robin and ordering clucks and fries for the ladies.
Clucks and fries? You want some clucks?
Yes, it's like, well, I'll have the clucks fresh. I'll have the
grown ass man here asking for clucks.
And somebody has because someone has returned the crumblies for not being good enough. Like What a weird.
This is just wet flour at this point. I can make this.
You know what, Terry? That one thing that I'm envious of you, because I'm sure there's one near you. I worked there as a teenager as a delivery driver on the East Coast when they used to exist out there and they used to deliver. Although I think they've started again. I want a Little Caesars pizza so bad, and there is not one anywhere close to Seattle.
You want to know what's crazy?
Oh,
I used to work at Little Caesars myself.
Did you?
I did. I sure in the hell did. I used to be back there making the crazy bread.
Mm-hmm.
Two for you.
I'll never forget my crazy bread training, because it was by the owners of the local Little Caesars, and my manager was named Tom, who was clearly like a thrice divorced current meth addict. Although I didn't like, but it was still the adult, but was not capable enough to teach us how to make crazy bread. And I remember watching this owner, and he was Greek, because every restaurant I ever worked at, and I'll call it Little Caesars a restaurant, the owners were Greek, and Greek people are mean, and they have no patience for, and they want to get what they want to get done, and then they want to go on to do whatever Greek stuff they do. So we just had this like vat of butter. I don't know if that's what you kind of had, Terry. And you would just shove it in. And I remember his Greek voice. This is like one of those quotes that never disappears from me. He's like, "The bread is the vehicle for the butter. Never forget, bread, vehicle for butter." It said it in such an aggressive way. It was like,
I'm never forgetting this.
No. So it's just always like, one more dip in the butter. And then, 2 months later, we added pepperoni and cheese. We stuffed the crazy bread. And at that point, wow, did the game change.
Yeah. I got to tell you before we get out of here, my first experience was 10th grade. I got hired by Little Caesars, and I was like so excited. I'm going to be making pizzas. I'm going to be in the kitchen doing my thing. Like,
right. That you think you're going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Literally, my first day, they had me in the alley. This is your job for the day, is to sweep and mop the alley for the whole day. I'm just outside. I'm working at Little Caesars, though.
What was happening in the alley?
Like, it was just a dirty, crummy-ass alley. Like, I'm back there. And they were just like, I'm going to get this dumbass kid and just make him clean the whole alley for like 3 days in a row.
Right.
In Texas, 100 degrees. Can I get some water?
Wow. A dumb, old, dirty Texas Little Caesars alley. Wow.
That was me.
Yeah.
And all the free crazy bread I could take. So
yeah, that was the thing. Everybody was young. Nobody cared. Tom was, again, all methed. He didn't give a shit.
Drew,
if somebody were to give you a $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza and said you should eat all of this right now, I think I would. I mean, I could probably get like 2 slices through, and then probably need to take a.
I don't think
that could be kind of the power zone sort of.
The desire for it is just so. It's so pent up, because the last time I had Little Caesars is when I worked there, and that's when I was 18. I've been yearning for it ever since. That I think I just love that hot and ready brings people in.
Let me ask you this before we get out of here too, Zach and Drew. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember when the Little Caesars pizzas used to come in like the paper wrap? It used to come. Be 2 pizzas. It'd be 2 pizzas in the thing in the middle, and it was wrapped in paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I used. That's the Little Caesars I worked at. Now it's just in boxes.
Yeah, now they've gotten fancy.
Yeah.
I also thought that like the fact that the grease and oil was always leaking through the paper was a demarcation that you were about to eat something
really good.
Really good. Yes.
Like, man, this is leaking in the car ride home. I can't wait to
And then, all right, this will be the last topic. You remember the Little Caesars Bigfoot that was pizza like the size of your living room?
Yeah.
Which wasn't even like a reaction to Pizza Hut being like, here's 30 slices. Everyone was still at like 12 slices, and Little Caesars was like, you want 48 fucking slices? We got it.
We got 48.
Have you ever been to like a soccer party and thought there are too many people here? Now is the time where you can bring your own pizza home. That was meant for far more people than just yourself.
All right, Drew, great to see you, dude.
Yeah.
Good seeing you. Zach. It's been far too.
It's been a long. Are you still out in Montlake Terrace?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Just say 2 years, but we are starting to look at houses.
Oh, really? Wow, look at you. That's what
Yeah.
happens when you live out in Montlake Terrace. And it's been a little bit of the problem is that you might as well live where Terry lives, which right now,
It's not far.
yeah.
3/4 of the way here.
Once you go back past exit like 173 for me, it's like, well, you're basically in British Columbia.
Well, we're technically in Snohomish County now, so we have big
Yeah.
bonfires, some straws, and plastic bags. It's a lot of fun.
Wow.
Makes shopping different.
Yeah, let's have you back on soon. And I can't wait to hear 12 minutes on your brain problems. That'll be
it's good.
It'll be fun.
Good. It's the goal. The trick right now is getting people not to look so concerned as I'm telling them about it. That's the one.
Right.
I have to just start by being like, just so you know,
I'm okay. Yeah.
You can laugh now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay.
Terry, I'll talk to you again on Monday. Man.
Yes, sir.
Always fun. It's just one of us needs to get Long John Silver's this weekend. And Terry, you seem like the most likely candidate because it's close to you. Please eat some crumblies. We're going to lead off the next show with a crumblies review. This is Anarchist Jurisdiction. I'm Zach Burns. That's Terry Holloman, the Holla, Drew Barth. Again, thank you so much. Talk to you again soon, buddy.
See you guys. Thanks, Drew.
See ya.
Yep.
See ya.
Have a good night, guys. Pleasure.